Hello, fellow writers. I'm Lewis. That over there is Tolkien, and you have found the Scripturian Society.
Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you here.
Yeah.
As I guess Catherine mentioned, Catherine / Karissa / Tolkien. No, Lewis. I'm sick today, guys.
You're Tolkien.
I'm Tolkien. That's Lewis. But anyways, you will note that we go by many different names. I also go by Ash, and currently by that sick monster sitting in her living room who
So
can barely
sad.
speak. So I apologize for the gross state of my voice. I have had approximately 15 cups of tea today.
Aw.
It is only marginally helping. I'm waiting for this one to cool off enough that I can start drinking it so I can sound slightly less ogreish. But
I think you have kind of a great sick voice. It sounds I don't know how to describe it. Like throaty, but in a good way.
Throaty, but in a good way. Okay, this is the weirdest compliment I've ever gotten, but I'm also feeling like the most proud of this compliment, possibly of any compliment.
There you go.
It's throaty.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds gross when I say it like that.
You have to say in a good way. Otherwise,
in a good way. I'm throaty in a good way. Ew. It gets worse every time I do it.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I mean, how long have you been sick? How has your week been otherwise?
Well, okay. So I started to feel like I really just thought it was allergies. And to be fair, my allergies are so severe. This could literally just be allergies.
Yeah.
I started to get like kind of like a scratchy throat. My nose was hurting yesterday, which happens, pretty much all the time, especially living out here where the allergies are really bad for most people. And then this morning I woke up and I was like, everything hurts. Like I can't speak very well. Swallowing is really hard. And I was like, dang it. Because everyone around me, it's been like roulette. Everybody around me has gotten sick with something. Like my brother's got a fever right now. My mom got COVID a few weeks ago. Like everyone at my husband's office is sick. Like everyone's gotten sick but me. And I've like managed to stay out of it all. And I work from home, so I can. And somehow something got me. I took a COVID test. I'm negative for COVID. So hooray for that.
Yes.
But something got to me. So hope, fingers crossed, it's not like strep or something. Because then I have to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
But
yeah, something that'll clear on its own, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just been a couple days, but other than that, the week's been good. We started looking at houses. It is not the most encouraging adventure at this point. Aww. Because God, there's just this area we live in is so expensive. Our options are so very limited, especially for what we want. So that's okay. Just means we might be looking a little bit longer. But that plus my sickness had me like very boo-hooey last night. Very first world boo-hooey. So yeah. But how's your week been?
Good. It's been kind of up and down emotionally, even though nothing has happened.
God, I feel that.
I was kind of talking to you about this before where like doing the podcast and everything, every once in a while, I'm just like, I'm a failure. Everything is going so badly. And then other times I'm like, man, I'm awesome. And it just ricochets back and forth.
It's so funny. I feel like I do the same thing. I just must like be more outward about it than you are, because I didn't know this was a thing you did all the time. But that's pretty much where I'm at all the time. I'm either I'm probably more proud than you are, because when I'm arrogant, I'm like excessively arrogant about something.
It's true.
Or I'm just like, I'm the worst and I can't do anything. And there seems to be like no in between. And I told you the other day, I also have been just like, my hormones have been just crazy. So I stood in the kitchen just completely depressed for literally no reason at all the other day. And it took me 20 minutes to figure out what I wanted to drink. And then I chose water, plain water, not even sparkling water, just plain old water. Yeah. It took me 20 minutes to stand there and decide. And then I felt even worse because I was like, you dumbass, it just took you 20 minutes to pick to drink water.
You wasted 20 minutes of your life.
Exactly.
Oh, that's fun.
Hopefully everyone else's first week of 2022 has been going a little bit better.
Yeah. There is something about the new year that's like extra hopeful and also extra down. Like you feel like all of your achievements from last year were nothing. And then you also have the hope that like this year is going to be awesome. So
it's true. And you also have just come down from the holidays, which is always like just very emotional, whether good or bad. So it's just like the first couple weeks of January are just a lot.
They're weird. They feel like a time out of the Twilight Zone. They don't feel real most of the time.
It's so true. I was like, it's already the 5th of January. What? But then part of me is like, January is almost over. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Nope. It has only been 5 days.
Yeah.
From where we are right now. Yeah. What was I going to say? I don't know. Write this down.
I got you.
I have nothing else to say. I guess I was going to say to go right into book recommendations.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Nothing exciting has happened to us. I read my first book of 2022. And it was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. She, if you don't know, has written the Caraval trilogy or whatever. And this
I love Caraval.
It was so good. And this is a like sequel series. So it takes place in the same world. And I just love her world building skills. So it was really fun and really good. So I would recommend.
Nice. I am rereading The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
It's as good as the first time I read it. Like, it's a good book. So I'm enjoying that. It's nice because like some of the stuff we read for That Pretentious Book Club, our sister podcast, some of that stuff is like kind of feels more like work or study than play. But whenever we get to read like a really good contemporary, like The Hunger Games, I'm like, breath of fresh air. This is my escape. Yeah.
Sometimes I forget how much I loved The Hunger Games and how new it was at the time because it blew up so much that it now just feels almost cliche.
Yeah.
But it is/was such a good book and so interesting. So
yeah, it really is. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any other book recs except Hunger Games, which I'm assuming we've all read already.
Yeah. Or at least you know what it is.
Or at least it's certainly you know what it is. If anyone is shocked and doesn't know what it is, I want to hear from you. I want to know how you've been living your life so that I can take notes. Thank you.
It's an almost impressive level of world blindness.
It is a super impressive level. I'm all about it. Okay, well, so what's our word of the week?
Okay, so Cicatrize.
Cicatrize. Hey, I'm Cicatrize right now.
No.
No.
So it's Cicatrize, and it is to heal by scar formation, to find healing by the process of forming scars. I think is a really cool word.
That is very cool. Cicatration. I already forgot.
Cicatrize.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Cicatration. I mean, cicatrize is the verb. So maybe there's a noun version. I don't know.
I'm going to assume that it's cicatration and then I'm correct. Cicatrize. Okay. That's a very cool word.
It is. I want to use that in writing.
I was thinking about like if it was my job to pick up the word of the week every week, and I was like, somehow I feel like it wouldn't be nearly as exciting. Like you find like the really cool words. I would find like the weird words that like it kind of makes sense we don't use anymore because no one really needs to use them.
Like what would be the context we would ever need this word?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, cicatrize, that's a good one. And then some of the other ones too. Bugbear was a good one. What was last week's word? It was a good one too. I liked it.
It was antediluvian.
Antediluvian, exactly. I keep thinking about that one and I'm like, God, such a good word.
It is.
Yeah.
It's fun. I really like obscure vocabulary words. I was the kid that really enjoyed vocab like tests and the vocab list like on Mondays that you would get for the week in class. Yeah. I always liked those a lot. So
I liked spelling tests and I liked the list they'd give you of words to learn how to spell. But I didn't actually care all that much about what the words meant, which is weird. You'd think I'd care more, but I just got such good grades on my spelling test that I was just like, oh, good. Another A for me is on the way.
That's so funny. In the 6th grade, me and one of my friends every class had to pick someone to participate in the spelling bee, like school-wide spelling bee. And we were the best spellers, but neither of us wanted to do it. So it ended on the two of us. And it was back and forth for several rounds of us purposefully misspelling words so that we wouldn't have to be the one in it. And she was just so much more dedicated than I was. So I ended up finally just like begrudgingly spelling a word right.
That is so funny.
And then I
actually do know how to spell this.
Yeah. Psych, I'm smart. But then I got really into it. And then I lost when it was the school-wide one on the word squirrel because I only gave it one R.
Oh no.
And I remember it so vividly because it was so sad.
This is so sad.
Now I've just decided to hate spelling bees because that experience was so weird. So
it scarred you.
It did. But I have cicatrized
Since then? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with you've experienced cicatration since then and
Okay,
moved on.
yeah.
I'm gonna go with my potentially made up noun version.
Yeah.
Cool.
Spelling bees. Anyway.
I never had to do one. I would literally watch the other kids go up there and do them and be like, suckers. Because
I wanted
like
to be that person.
I enjoyed my privately when I would get an A on my spelling test, but I'm just like something about like just the shame of misspelling a word
right in front of everyone.
It's so bad. I'm like, I kind of would almost rather be pantsed in front of a bunch of people than misspell a word. At least that's not my fault if I get pantsed. If I misspell a word, it's just like, well, she is very stupid. And you're like, I am, aren't I?
Aw.
Oh man.
It is kind of weird that we do spelling bees. I mean, I guess it's no different than like a talent show or something, but it's like directly a reflection of your intelligence.
Yeah, we all have the same talent, and the talent is spelling words, which is actually not that helpful of a skill now that we have spell check. It's kind of like,
so true.
Why do we have this? Why do we care?
Yeah, I guess it was a big deal back when I was in 6th grade. Not that it was that long ago, but the internet wasn't as big then, was it?
Eons ago. I doubt it was as big. I mean,
I remember using actual dictionaries. Does that age me? Do I now sound old when I say that?
Probably. I used to also. And I remember because my mom said, Ashley, and you do not use the word ain't. Ain't is not a real word. It makes you sound uneducated. And I was like in 2nd grade or 3rd grade or something. And I was like, I'm going to prove that it is a word. And I went and I pulled down the dictionary in our classroom and I found it. And I was like, I'm going to tell my mom I found it in the dictionary today. And she's like, you still can't use it. And I was like,
the rule doesn't change. I appreciate your gumption to go and look it up. But
yeah, I was like, dang it. But there's another weird one too. I don't remember. It was another like slang like word. And my mom was like, you can't use it because you'll sound uneducated. And I proved that it was in the dictionary. And yet again, it didn't change anything. Could
you use y'all? You're in the South, so
y'all,
that's a word.
Because y'all isn't really, it doesn't make you sound uneducated in Texas, at least, because everybody uses it.
Right.
So it's just more like for efficiency, instead of being like, hey, all of you, hey, y'all, or instead of saying, so you two, you guys, you and your family, you can literally just all encompassing y'all and you're good to go.
Yeah.
It's just so easy. But ain't, it makes you sound uneducated apparently. So is not.
Or isn't.
Or isn't. Exactly. You use a
contraction. Want to go in the middle?
See, that's the thing, is there's a middle ground. So I think that's it too, is like, y'all is the contraction for you all, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Is not already has a contraction. It doesn't need one that's even more incorrect for no reason.
True.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to let you tell us about the theme this week, because this is a very special theme to you. And I'm kind of just here to learn. I am one of our listeners today. Hello, I'll take a seat next to you.
Right. It might seem like obvious, but I just want to talk about I have this theory that there are 4 elements that make a book a good book, right? So if you're striving to write a good story, a good book, you need all 4 of these elements. And it's nothing like super out of the box. I just think that sometimes people will miss one of the 4 and then like justify it on the basis that they have the other 3. So the 4 are like captivating or interesting plot, captivating or interesting characters, theme or meaning or something to say. And then the 4th one is good writing ability, like solid writing style. And again, I know that sounds like super obvious, but I don't know that it always is. Sometimes people think that they can get by on one or the other.
It's true. Or like, I've got 1 or 2 of those things that must make up for it. And you're right. You do, at the bare minimum for a good story, need all 4 of those things. And they are all very important.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just talk a little bit about each one and why I think they're all so important. And I mean, obviously, like when it comes to writing ability, that's going to differ based on if you're writing for kids or adults. And if we're talking about plot, there are different conventions for different genres and everything, but just broadly. So obviously plot, even if you're in a character-led story, you need to have some kind of plot going on, because obviously that's what's going to prompt character growth and change and things that are going to make us want to keep reading, right? And then character, obviously you still need, even if it's a plot driven story, because why would we care about it if we don't care about the characters? And I guess those seem really obvious, so maybe I'll come back to them, but I don't know that I have a lot to say, except that they just they need to be strong, and you can't get by on like flat characters just because you have an interesting plot, or a boring plot just because you have interesting characters. But the two I guess I really want to talk about the most are theme and writing style. So I saw this TikTok the other day, because a lot of my stories start that way now.
Oh, no way. Yeah. They do.
Where someone was talking about whether or not you need to know your theme before you start writing, and like whether or not that's necessary. And I guess the answer, I think, is no. You don't necessarily have to know it beforehand, but you do eventually have to get there, because even if you're not trying to put a theme in your book, something is going to come across. And you want to make sure that it's clear and that you utilize the plot and the characters to really bring that full circle. Because otherwise, you know, it might be an entertaining story, but what was the point of it? I guess my main point with all these is that entertaining isn't enough. You also have to have something, some kind of purpose behind it, or some kind of reason why you're writing the story. So theme is fun. I was thinking about this the other day. Do you remember in like college when they were teaching us how to come up with themes? And most people think that a theme is really a topic. So like the theme of your book can't be love. It has to be
something about love
conquers death, or something like that. And so it's always really hard, because people will talk about theme and they think it's just a topic, and then they think they don't have to have anything to say about that topic. But you do. You need a topic, but then you also have to have something to say about it. And it doesn't have to be concrete. It could just be a discussion on the topic, but then that's the theme of the book, is that you're creating a discussion on that topic. So I think that's important. And so if you don't have to know the theme off the top of your head, but you are going to inherently have a topic, and then you do eventually have to steer the story in a particular direction to make a statement on that topic. Does that make sense?
That's true. Sorry, I only get to hear my phone going off. I think that's super true. I think it's definitely okay to not have your theme totally pinned down when you start writing, and maybe even like through the first third of the book. And I think we've said that about some other things too, but then the thing is, it gets really hard to go back in and be intentional about the theme stuff or foreshadowing of whatever it is you're going to do if you wait until you're like more than a third of the way into the book. So it's definitely not something you need to know right off the bat, and you can kind of work it out in your head, but it is so much easier to figure it out either first or while you're writing up to the first third, and then you can go from there with intention for like trying to express the theme, versus you get to the end of your book, it's done, and you have to go, okay, what was the theme? And then you have to like think, was that even like an intelligible theme? Is that something that my readers are going to notice? And is it intentional? Like, is it intentionally displayed throughout the story?
And I guess the good thing, I think it's a good thing about theme, is that A, you're not going to have just one, and B, it's going to be up for interpretation. So readers might not get out of it exactly what you think you're saying, but that can almost be a
guaranteed
good thing. Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing you definitely have to let go of as a writer, is that knowing your readers, or at least as an author, when you're having other people read what you've written, they're going to get something totally different out of it than you intended. And that's fine. But there has to be an intention to start with. Otherwise, it's just going to seem not fully formed.
They should at least be kind of on your train of thought, even if they ultimately come to believe something different about it. Or so like I've talked about the Mirror Visitor series a lot, and I was just,
have you?
I was just talking to myself about it. So something that's great about that theme is, and something that you can do in your writing, is it's really hard for me to tell if the author is an atheist or if she is religious somehow, because it could literally go either way. I totally see both possibilities. And I actually really like that, because it makes it really open to interpretation for not necessarily whatever you want to think, but it allows you to think about both sides, so that you're not just stuck on whatever you already believe or feeling alienated because it's the opposite of what you believe.
It's super true.
So
I think that's super really true. That is super cool. The A Threat Below by Jason Latshaw that we did on That Pretentious Book Club, main character does kind of a similar thing, where she's definitely like an outspoken atheist. Like, one of her best friends is very religious, And then it's so funny because she thinks that they're so ridiculous the whole time. But then later on, she basically ends up kind of like building her own pseudo religion of sorts. It's just, it's interesting. I think whenever you're displaying characters that are different, it's really, or at least that are supposed to seem really different, like an atheist person versus a religious person, you have to think about the fact that religion just really means a set of rules or doctrine that you subscribe to, which means everybody actually has a religion that they probably follow in some sense. And for atheists, perhaps, I mean, that's very individual. That's the difference, is that if you're an atheist, it can be totally an individual based religion, but
and it's not based on a god, it's based on whatever you personally think, but it still functions like a religion in your life.
Exactly. And so that's the kind of stuff that's really interesting to see. That was what was really interesting about The Threat Below, and then also what you're saying, which is just really interesting because it also draws it back to the idea that we all have a lot more in common than we have different, which is really actually quite nice.
It is. It's a nice, a nice theme.
It's a nice thought.
Also along those lines, I don't want to spoil it too much, but Neil Shusterman, who wrote the Scythe trilogy, you've probably seen it around. So it's a dystopian. I said that weird. It's a dystopian. It's a dystopian. It's a dystopian, and essentially there's no more death. And so there are these scythes that go around and they have to cull the population essentially, and they can do it however they want, but they have a certain quota. They can't overkill and they can't underkill. So it's a very interesting concept. And because of this, the general like normal religions that we would think of no longer exist, but there's this kind of cult of people that, gosh, I don't even remember what they worship, but they have this prediction or this prophecy about this thing called the toll, where like something is going to toll, and everyone's like, these people are crazy. And then at the end of book 2 it happens, and like no one saw it coming, but all these people are like, we told you, you called us crazy this whole time, but we told you this was coming. And I just remember how he wove that in, so like it was so interesting that they are portrayed even by him as the author as crazy this whole time. So you're never taking them seriously, but then they're right. Anyway, that's only sort of related, but I just think that's a really cool thing.
That is really cool. I mean, it's definitely kind of related. I mean, you can like that is another way that you can, display the theme. I didn't read the book, so I don't know what his overall themes were, but like you said, there can be multiple themes too. So
especially in a series, there's going to be multiple things you find yourself trying to say. So so yeah, theme is cool and important, and I like it. And I guess that's the thing that usually sticks out to me the most in books, even when even if I forget the characters' names or specific things that happened, like I can't remember exactly what happened at that point in the Scythe trilogy, but I remember like that moment and that feeling and that theme so well. So I think that's the thing that tends to stick, at least with some people. Yeah. You should be intentional about it.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I think with a truly good book, I mean, the idea is you really want your theme to stick. But everyone probably beyond that also has like a personal thing. Like for me, it's really plot, which is why I have plot holes and plot inconsistencies are a huge pet peeve for me, because I care so much about the plot, and I will often stop reading before I can get a good idea of the theme if I really just don't like the plot, or the plot is just maybe the plot is it's a good concept, but it's poorly executed, and then I'm like, I don't want to read this anymore.
And that's why all 4 are equally important, because if you drop the ball on one, then it doesn't even really matter if you did the others well, because people are not going to sit long enough through it to get to that point.
Sorry, I'm dying.
You're good.
Yes, exactly. Well, the thing is, like you're saying with these 4 things, is that I think most readers have an area that they care more about than not. So even if you're like, I totally killed it on 3 of these, I don't need to really worry about the last one. Well, you're going to have readers, and that last one's going to be the thing that they care about the most. So,
and if you are more naturally good at 2 or 3 of the 4, then you just have to put most of your effort into the ones that you're not as naturally good at. Like, I don't know, if I had to pick one, I would say the one I probably struggled with most is character. And it's hard for me sometimes to create unique characters and distinct characters, but I've had to put a lot of work into that, because I know that a lot of people are going to care about that. I know that I care about that when I'm reading. And so you have to put that extra effort in, even if it doesn't come naturally. You can't just, ride the plot and the meaning and everything and make that it.
What are all 4 of them again?
So plot, character, theme, and then writing ability. This is the one that I don't know. This is the one that bothers me the most, because I think there's this attitude that I mean, if I had to gauge social media, I'm not trying to criticize people, but it seems that there's
But
this
she
attitude,
is.
but I am, that there's this attitude that your writing ability doesn't matter as long as you're telling an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
And this really bothers me because you need both.
You do.
When you decide that you want to be a writer, and again, maybe it's a hobby, maybe you're just starting it, or maybe you've decided this is something you want to be a career, you chose that avenue for a reason.
Yeah.
If you just like storytelling, you don't have to be a writer. You can go into movies or TV. I mean, that's harder, but it's a route you can go.
Yeah.
You could go into other kinds of art or other kinds of storytelling.
Yeah.
The fact that you've gone into writing specifically means that
you need to be a good writer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
you can't just say, I don't know. So one of the book series that I ranted to Ash about a lot was, and this might be a controversial opinion, I don't know, but it was the Land of Stories series by Chris Colfer. Colfer? I think
that's right. I remember this
the Glee
rant.
guy.
So many rants on this one.
And what bothered me so much about these books is that they were so poorly written. Yeah. And then it felt like the author kept trying to make one of the themes or one of the points of the book that as long as you love storytelling, that's all that matters. And it's really not.
It's really not. Yeah.
It matters. It is in no way enough to make up for poor writing.
Yeah.
And the thing about writing is that of all four, it's the easiest one to learn.
I agree.
You can pretty easily learn how to write well. I do think there's a certain natural talent that good writers possess, but at most maybe 15-20%, the rest of it is hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you can fill in those gaps and learn that. If it's not, if the rules of grammar are hard for you, that's fine, but you still have to learn them.
It's super true. Yeah. I mean, the thing is too, like, if you're like, well, I love writing, but I'm not a very good writer, and you don't want to put in the work to becoming a good writer in a technical sense, well, maybe that's okay if you don't care if people read what you've written. But if your goal is to publish and to make money off selling your books, then that's a different level of commitment. Like, you wouldn't be a professional athlete and not stay in shape and not be good at your sport, or try your best to be good at your sport. So it's the same concept. It's whenever you want to make money off of something, but whenever it becomes more than just a hobby, that's when if there's an area where you can see that you are not quite up to snuff, that's when you really need to like dedicate some time and effort to getting that part up to snuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess it feels like sometimes people just don't care about that as much because they want, and I think part of it is just that people want encouragement and they almost take it too far to where it's almost like you either encourage or you criticize, and you can't do both. Yeah. But you totally can do both. You can encourage people while still saying you still need to get better at this.
Yeah. Well, I think like using like your 4 main principles of writing model, I think that's not too hard to do that, because inevitably at least one of those is going to be stronger than the others, probably multiple of them. So you can be like, hey, I absolutely loved your plot and your characters, but your theme and your writing needs some work. So I think, I mean, it's like everything. You want to give encouragement and criticism at the same time. Like, you want to give it together, but you really want to avoid giving just one or just the other.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, it just, I don't know. It just seems like people don't care about this as much. And so then I feel like I'm the only person that cares about the quality anymore, which then just gets really depressing. But there was this period of time where I was giving a lot of books on Goodreads 1 and 2 stars because I was just like, these are all so bad. And then I was getting a lot of videos and social media stuff about people who are like, I give every book 4 or 5 stars. I'm like, gosh, what is that like? I have never like constantly given that many books in a row 4 or 5 stars. And then you and my one other friend on Goodreads, Paige, who was my ex-coworker, you guys started giving books like a 1 star too or something like that. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm not alone. It was so nice.
Absolutely. Well, the ratings, it's so frustrating when people don't rate things, honestly, because you're like, this helps me decide if I want to go to the effort of spending this money and reading this book. So I probably average around 3 and 4 stars for a lot of stuff that I rate. Mostly because if it's a 1 or a 2 star book, I typically don't finish reading it, which I know is like shame. Because a lot of people in the writing community are like, I just have to finish it, even though it's bad. I don't experience that. I've never experienced that. So yeah, you do it. A lot of people do.
Do you not rate it then once that happens?
No, I don't typically rate it because
I
didn't finish it. I guess that's smart. I mean, I guess the fact that it was so bad that I stopped reading it is kind of like a review in itself.
Right. Yeah, darn, you said something there that made me think of a point. Did I forget it?
Is it about the Goodreads, 3 or 4
I think
stars?
so. I think it was about rating things.
I typically rate things 3 and 4 stars.
I rate things. Nope, it's gone.
Oh no.
Okay.
That's okay.
See if I can get back on track. Yeah, so learning the rules of writing is mostly pretty easy. I mean, you do still have to, do more artsy things like cultivate your voice and your personal style.
Yep.
Which can be harder and takes many years, but it's so worth it once you have it. Because I think if your book and your writing style doesn't stand out, I mean, gosh, there are so many dystopians, so many fantasies, so many.
Yeah.
You want yours to stand out. And I think really what makes it stand out, plot and characters are awesome. And a lot of times, especially the characters are who people fall in love with and who they remember.
Yeah.
But I think what's going to ultimately make your book like someone's favorite as opposed to something they just like is going to be writing style.
Yeah.
And how well you communicate it, because that's the point. That's why you're writing instead of any other form of storytelling. So
I think that's very true. May I add an addendum to your rules?
You may.
I think, because I've been trying to think if this like fits into any of your categories, but it doesn't quite fit into any of them in specific. Okay. I would say your concept also, like the concept for the story, like a retelling of something that hasn't been retold. That in itself is probably a strong concept, because if no one has retold that, or at least it hasn't made the mainstream yet, a retelling of it, that's kind of strong in itself because it is more original. Or if you do like really like a new take on anything, means you might have a stronger concept. But like the concept it's kind of a combination of all of the things. Like it's not really the writing style, but it kind of is a combination of the plot, the characters, the theme. And like I said, like if it's a retelling or something, it could also be parts of existing stories. And the concept also kind of like plays off of what's already been published or written. So I don't know. It's not really like a full like writing component, but like an element to a successful story. I think like, because like you said, there's tons of dystopians, but like a dystopian that has like a really original take on the genre, that's a good concept. I'm trying to think of an like specific example, but I'm having a hard time.
I think if you go back in time, I think Hunger Games at the time was that
an original concept, having a bunch of kids fight each other in a dystopian future because North America has fallen apart, and now once a year they have these games to remind people. So yeah, absolutely, like very original concept. So if this is particularly important, like you said, if you're like writing in a genre that's kind of already inundated, the more original your concept is, as long as it's still executable, honestly the better. So like if you're like trying to decide between a few different books that you want to write and one of them just has a really unique concept, maybe that's the one that you go for.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I guess related to that, but the opposite of that, even if you have an idea that has in a certain sense been done before, if you write it in a unique enough way, and even take it in a unique enough direction when it comes to theme and writing style, then that's going to make it stand out too, and it can push it past that sort of cliche perception that a story like that would have.
Exactly. I think that like YA fantasy is a great place to look at that, because I mean, how many times have we seen like secret princess like trope, or like just so many like they're big like plot important tropes, and they're in a ton of books. Saves the Kingdom, which is like a big plot point in so many YA books, and you still get these like YA fantasies that are really original that have those things just because they're written so well or so uniquely, or the characters are so unique. So absolutely, your concept doesn't have to be wholly original. There's nothing new under the sun, but you want there to be something original about how you approach it.
But yeah, let's see. I know there's more I have to say about this, but it's so weird that like you're not talking as much. I'm like, man, I feel like you like
I'm just
Ash,
here
where
to
are
learn,
you?
but also it hurts. It also hurts to speak. So
I'm sorry. Let's see. What else do I have to say about? You're gonna have to do so much editing. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm like lost without you or a script. So I did have another point about the writing, because that's what I'm gonna end up talking.
I have a point I was gonna say about the writing while you think about it.
Okay.
if you are not that confident in your writing ability and you're like, I'm too old to learn, or I'm too set in my ways to learn, here's a great idea. Pay for an editor, not just any editor, like find an editor with good reviews and pay for a copy edit. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say pay for a developmental edit, because that basically, for a developmental edit, you should be getting detailed comments in the margins of your story. And you should also be getting like a 4 to like 12 page report about all the different elements of your book. Honestly, just getting one of those even once, you will learn so much that you didn't even see about your writing. Even if you're already a objectively good writer, you're going to learn so much about ways that you can improve, that you can apply that to not only that story, but to any future story. So if you're like, well, I spent all this money on an editor, but now I'm not going to publish this book, so it's all for a loss. If you learn something about how to be a better writer, it was not for a loss.
True.
Yeah, because that kind of feedback is golden, which is where even if you get like a friend or something to read and give their feedback, it's never going to be as detailed or objective as it is if you pay a professional editor.
True.
Yeah.
Because they really know what they're doing and it's their job.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess that's another point too. And I've been seeing this both sides also on TikTok a lot, about how the first book you write is unlikely to be the first book that you publish. Like it's unlikely to get published at all.
Yeah.
And part of that is because you're using that first book or first 5 books as experience to really hone that writing style.
Yep.
It might be a good plot. It might be good. You might have good characters and have an interesting theme, but the purpose of the first few/several books you write is going to be to really
hone your writing style.
Yeah. Nail the voice. And
absolutely.
And you can take things like the plot and the characters and the theme from that original book and put it into a later book, or go back later when you feel really strong and rewrite it.
Yeah.
But as is the first draft of the first book you write, even edited, is probably not going to be your first one.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, exactly. But like nothing is a waste of time when it comes to writing, because you're always honing your craft, and there's no shortcut. If you have to write a whole book or a whole bunch of books before you really nail your written voice and you really like get all the technical stuff on writing that you need to, then you do. And there's just no way to shortcut that. Like you just are just going to have to be okay with it, and just know that it's good. It's still all good. It's still all progress. Every book that can't be published or isn't ready to publish, or that fails when you publish it, is really moving you one step closer to the book that's going to get published and going to sell. It's not a step backwards, even though it can feel like that. And it's felt like that for me before too. But everything, as long as you're still writing, you are still taking steps forward.
And I don't know if it's especially with writers or artists or everyone, I don't know, but it can usually feel like a criticism of you as a person if someone says this isn't that good, or it needs a lot of improvement, and it's not. I know it feels that way.
But it's really not.
But it's not. And I guess if you want to be a good writer, a lot of this depends on, do you want to be a good writer, or do you just want to do it for fun? But if you want to be a good writer, you have to care enough about it to take that criticism. And instead of believing, oh, well, I'm already pretty good, but this story is really good, or it really matters to me, that's not enough. You have to be willing to take that and say, okay, how can I make this the best possible version? Yeah. And that's, I guess, what frustrates me sometimes when I read books and I feel like they have so much potential to be good, but they're just not. Yeah. And sometimes it's as simple as the grammar's not good, and I'm like, oh, they could have just used an editor. Sometimes it's a good concept, but they clearly just thought that they would be able to get by
to just coast on the concept. Absolutely, which you cannot do.
And it's so annoying. And I think this happens sometimes with series too, that book 1 will start out really strong, and then they'll kind of meander and they don't really know where they're going. And it just doesn't end up as solid as the first half or first book in the series. Then that's really disappointing, because then you put all of this effort into even more books to read. And
exactly.
It doesn't pay off. True. Yeah. So writing is important, and you can't rush it.
Yeah, I would say, I'm not going to say don't get attached to your stories, because that's literally impossible, but maybe
so impossible.
It is, but maybe don't get attached to the idea of any particular story being published and successful. You can hope for it, but if you get attached to that idea, it is so much more crushing if it doesn't happen. And maybe it will happen, but your belief in whether or not that's going to happen doesn't really make that much of a difference, honestly. Yeah. I think it's better to not get attached to that idea, because also if you're not attached to that idea, then if it doesn't work out, or it turns out people are like, this is just not the quality to be published, or you publish and it just doesn't sell. At least if you weren't really attached to the idea of this is going to be the book that's going to make me famous, then you are mentally ready to keep moving forward, to keep working on the next thing. Whereas it's really easy to get kind of stuck on the one thing that you're like, this will be my crowning achievement. And you're like, well, then maybe it's not. And then it's so much more devastating if it doesn't work out the way you want.
You've attached almost too much to it.
Yeah, exactly. You've attached
bigger
too
drop.
much. Yeah. So I think it's okay to be attached to your stories, but I think it's better to just hope for the best, but not have any expectations for the professional outcome of a particular story. Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. Trying to think if I have anything in particular to say about plot and characters. I mean, obviously you could say about a million things about both of those, but like a rule of thumb or anything, I don't know. I guess, so this is an interesting question, and maybe I've asked you this before. Do you start with plot or characters when you start with a new idea?
It totally depends.
Is it
sometimes plot, sometimes characters? It just depends.
Yeah.
I mean, the characters are usually pretty fast after the plot, though, if not the like if the plot. I mean, my books tend to be more character driven than plot driven.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think, yet again, I'm kind of the opposite, that I usually come up with plot or world first.
Yeah.
And then
I have a hard time with the world thing. That's not my best. Yeah.
Yeah. Where would world be in my categories?
Setting.
I know, it's like a different, I guess I would put it under plot because it's a thing that's happening, but it could also be a character.
This is very, very true.
If you have a deep enough world, so I guess it just depends on what you're writing.
Yeah, it definitely does. But yeah, setting is also an important one. For me, setting typically comes last. I will say for the book I'm working on now, for the first time ever, my setting came first, which was really weird. And then the plot came, and then the characters. So this has been very out of order for me, but yeah, still good.
I guess the reason I didn't put setting in my 4 categories is because I think you can almost make up for a bad setting with the other 4.
Yeah, I kind of think you can too.
I mean, if you think about any book that takes place in the real current worlds, setting is usually not a big deal. I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, it takes place in New York City, or, something everyone knows about, like Paris or LA or something. But setting doesn't usually play as big of a role as plot or characters, for sure. And even I think as theme and writing.
Yeah.
I could forgive bad setting. I mean, it's still important, but
yeah, it's still important. It's still ideal, but yeah, I agree. It's like, well, because it's sorry.
It's okay.
It's not that the action itself, it's the backdrop to the action. So if it's not super strong, you can kind of still coast without it. It'd be great if it was, but it's okay if not. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, like a lot of books that take place in the real world, you could transplant the story and it wouldn't necessarily change a lot. And that's fine, because there are certain stories that just take place in the real world. But you shouldn't be able to take your plot or your characters or your theme and just replace it with something else.
No.
And leave the story the same.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They all need to be so integral to the story that you can't do that.
I agree.
But anyway, I guess those are just I just think they're all really important. And my main point is that you can't just say that you're good at 2 or 3 of those and then call yourself a writer. I mean, if you write, you're a writer, and that's good and fine. But if you want to be professional at it and you want to be good at it, you do have to make up for the areas that you're just more naturally lacking in. And that's okay, but you do need to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I agree. I totally agree with all your principles, your elements. On the note of writing, do you have any writing updates for us?
I mean, I'm kind of just deciding. I've been thinking about it and deciding what I'm going to write next. I'm in between my 2 projects that are kind of on my mind, which is the one that I want to write from second person. And I have some of it written, but I just need to iron out some details before I can keep writing, because I stopped writing because I got stuck. Or my, what did I call it? My Lord of the Flies remix or something, which I was gonna do over NaNoWriMo and then I didn't.
Yeah.
I just nailed down the theme of that one as I was like thinking about these over the past week or so. And I was like, this is gonna be the theme. And so I'm just excited. And I feel like I have that really.
Then you should go for that one because you're ready. You're inspired.
It's true.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I have not done that much more work on my book. I got another scene, like basically kind of like transposed from like, because I sent you that really, really rough draft that was like half in first person, half in third person. And since then I've written a full outline. So I'm also trying to like, I kind of have to reorganize what I'd written and like add some new foreshadowing in. So I'm still like transposing my original really, really rough draft of the first few chapters over to my new style so that I can actually like have that. I feel like when I get the first few chapters actually done, I'll like have a better idea of the voice for this book. So I'm just having a hard time nailing down the voice because I don't usually write in third person. So it really changes my voice because I'm usually like really snarky first person comments. So I'm still working on that, but I'm hoping I might get a chance to work on that some this week. It's really fun, which is nice.
I know the beginning stages of writing something are like the hardest and the most fun in certain ways because you're still like there's so much freedom with what you can do with it. But
exactly.
Then you don't know what to do with it.
It's the closest thing to magic. That's what I keep seeing going around. Writing is the closest thing to magic. You make something out of nothing. Yeah. It's very true. Do you have any other writing updates, or is that about it?
That's it. It's not. I feel like a fake because I haven't had writing updates for like the past 7 episodes.
Okay, well,
like,
I typically have even fewer, so I'm the real fake here. It's just that it's being a grown-up in a grown-up world. There's just not all the time in the world to write, unfortunately. There's other priorities, and that is okay. Don't let anybody shame you into feeling like you're not a writer because you have other responsibilities.
That's true.
Part of me wishes I could be 12 again and stay up until 4 a.m. writing on the computer.
Gosh,
but I literally can't, right? Good times. I would just power through books, but I can't. There's other things that are important in life too. So yeah, that's okay though. Writing is still a priority. It just takes more time to get stuff done now.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just slowly dying.
Yeah, I'm just slowly dying.
Do you want to tell us about? We have a new exciting update for our Parent Study listeners, and I'm going to let Catherine tell you about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of hinted at it last episode. I've been thinking about it for a while, but I mean, we're going to keep doing these episodes, like the normal main ones, but I'm going to start doing these little mini-sodes where I take a certain book, maybe a series every once in a while, and I just analyze very specifically why I do or don't think it's done well, like on a literary level. So I already have the first episode recorded, which is really exciting.
It's ready to publish.
Yes. And it's going to be called Catherine's Corner because Catherine is the critical side of me.
And this very scary alter ego.
Yeah.
It's Catherine.
Yes. So essentially, if you want some more specific examples, I mean, we kind of touch on some things in these main episodes most of the time, but if you want really specific examples, that's what those are going to be about. I think they're going to end up about half an hour each. So just focusing in on a specific book and why I do or don't like it. I mean, some of them are going to be really positive and like, this is the best thing ever. And some are going to be, this is the worst book ever.
Yep.
And me complaining. And then some of them will be in between where I like things, but I also dislike things.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like, they're kind of like little book reviews, but like from a very literary standpoint, like breaking it down, like as a writer who reads for the sake of also learning how to write better. That's kind of like how you're breaking it down. So
and I'm going to use the 4 elements.
There you go. She's going to use her own little, what do you call it? Rubric.
Theory? Yeah, rubric.
Yeah. She's got her own rubric.
Try to touch on all 4 of those points because I guess those are just like the most obvious things that in books that stand out. Yeah. And that people struggle with.
Absolutely. So, I think that'll be fun. I'm excited. I already got to hear it early before everybody else did. And it's so good and so professional and makes me sound like such a joke because it's so like clean and I'm over here like hacking it along during recording.
Oh gosh. So I sat down at 1:30 today and I was like, okay, I'm going to record this episode. And I wrote out like a little script so that I wouldn't lose my train of thought and everything. So it is like slightly scripted, but also not entirely. It took me like 3.5 or 4 hours to record it because I kept recording it and then being like, I stumbled over that word. I have to do it again.
No
and
way.
So like not the whole episode, but little like 2 or 3 minute clips. And I was like, okay, so essentially I have like a certain number of sentences I know I can get through without messing up. And then I stop it, like saving a Word document. And then I keep going.
That is so funny. I mean, that makes sense. I guess if we weren't recording like a talk show style, then I could be doing that as well.
Yeah. I mean, this is more of a conversation. So, and, you like lose your train of thought and then you have to say, wait, what was I talking about? Or I know I had more to say about this, but what was it? Whereas with these, I'm like sitting down for a couple days beforehand, making sure I get all my thoughts out. But so if you think you would enjoy that, check those out. I mean, they'll be on the Scriptorian Society and everything.
Yeah, they're going to be coming out on every Monday. So let's see, until that comes out on Monday and until next week's episode, you guys should go check us out on social media. We are the Scriptorian Society on Instagram and on TikTok. And of course, like I've mentioned before, Karissa is all over the TikTok, lots of very funny writing videos on TikTok. So go follow her. That TikTok is quite popular. And the Instagram is getting pretty popular as well for totally different reasons. The Instagram is more like little like writing tips and tidbits and little summary clips from the episodes. So go check it out. I think it's a fun place to be. If you want to check us out online, you can go to storysirenstudio.com. That's the production studio that we're under. So we're going to have some merch up there soon, which is exciting. You guys will get to just get some Scriptorian Society merch to match Karissa's. You can see in the background if you're watching on YouTube. So you guys can match if you want. And you can also find all of our episodes online as well. If you guys have anything that you want us to talk about specifically about writing or otherwise, you guys can email us at contact@storysirenstudio.com, or you can DM us on TikTok and Instagram. We love talking to people and we would love to talk to you and want to hear your ideas. And for our final thing, you can go to Story Siren Studio on Patreon and you can join our free writing group for free. It's a writing group. Did I mention it's free?
It's free.
It's free.
Wait, how much does it cost?
Nothing. It's free. Yeah. So if you guys want to talk like about writing or like, want to like, share short stories or whatever you're working on right now, we would love to talk about that kind of stuff with you guys. I mean, it's what we love to talk about. Obviously, that's why we started a podcast about it. So we're here for you. We would love to talk to you about writing or anything else you want to talk about. And I think that's all I got.
Yeah. You did that really well, despite
my illness. Everybody wish me good health and that I don't die. How sad would it be if I did die after this? It'd be tragic, wouldn't it?
It would. We would have almost your last words on tape, though, which would be really cool.
Oh no. I like it. That's funny. My last words are social media tags, basically. Yeah. It is. If funny, I die, you guys better all go buy some merch.
Yes. Support her death.
Yeah.
I don't know. My parents
support my poor co-hosts who will now be without me.
Right. My parents sat me down the other day and they're like, if we die, this is what you do. I'm like, okay. And I took notes. I'm like, great. This is all super fun.
That's so morbid, but at the same time, I'm like, that's so practical. Excellent.
It's so smart.
Choice.
Yeah.
Like my practical brain is like, why don't we do this? Like this is so good. Yeah. I just have like a vague thing like Javi can have most of my stuff. I have a flask filled with whiskey. Oh, a flask filled with whiskey that I haven't decided who it's gonna go to yet, but it's a Firefly flask from the show Firefly. And then there's my free write, who I can't decide who that's going to yet, but I'll probably put it in my will that you and Kendall can fight to the death over it.
I like that. It sounds
I thought
good.
You might, right? Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah, I know totally some people are so like afraid to talk about death, and my dad is just like, do you think when I die that like this will happen to my body or like this will happen? And I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
So we talk about it all the time.
This is also not on topic, but I think about this a lot because when I took an anthropology class, because I really wanted to do archaeology for a while, I still would if I could make any money doing it and could survive doing it, but you almost can't. But I was interesting because basically in the US, this is not news to a lot of people, but we have such a weird view of death. Like we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to see it. And in other cultures, it is a very like normal and real part of life. Like they don't, immediately haul away deceased family members. So you don't have to look at their bodies anymore. Right. Like they'll stay in the house for a little while. They'll do a wake. They'll do, it's just like a way, like a normal part of life and not like a thing to be like, so like, it's almost like it's
afraid of,
taboo to like talk about or like to be near. And so I don't know. I kind of think the more I see death happening in this country, like close and like intimately and farther off, I just keep thinking, man, we've really screwed ourselves over with this like weird approach we took to death, because it's like almost we've made the experience even more traumatizing.
So worse. I mean, like the one thing you can be sure of in life is that you're going to die.
Yeah, and so, but we're like, don't think about it, don't talk about it, don't see it, we don't see it, and it's just like
it's so weird.
Definitely worse for everybody.
For sure.
Oh man,
it's a strange thing. Anyways,
maybe that's a theme that somebody wants to write about.
Yeah, write about death,
the intimacy of death, the importance of an intimacy with death,
or the weird way that Americans have decided to view death and how damaging it is to our psyches.
Yeah, let's see it. I would love somebody out there write this book, please
do it.
Yeah,
here we gave you the theme. All you have to do now is do the plot characters and the writing ability.
There you go. And then dedicate it to me, because I will have died by then from this cough probably. Just kidding, I'll probably survive, who knows. Oh well. Let's see. I think that's all we got for you guys. Like I said, reach out if you guys have ideas or you want to see certain stuff from us. And until next week, keep writing.
And we'll see you on the next page.